CEO of MoxiWorks. And he's just started the job about 11 months ago and has learned so much about the real estate industry and really understands the role that technology plays in that, in such a relationship-driven industry. And I think you'll really enjoy his message and his discussion about some of the trends that he's seeing out there right now. So enjoy the podcast. So Eric, welcome to the RealTrending podcast. Glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Tracey.
Yeah, we're going to talk all things tech trends. But first, I want to have you tell our audience just a little about how you came to MoxiWorks and what some of your goals are for the coming year.
Yeah, sounds good. Look, I'm a founder, CEO. I spent 25 years running two businesses that I founded in legal tech. So I've only been in real estate for 11 months. I can talk about how that made sense for me and our private equity sponsor at some point. But I come from SaaS business, and I'm a growth-oriented type CEO. Obviously, the real estate industry has had a challenging couple of years. 4 million homes sold last year compared to 7 million in 21. We don't need 7 million again. But what I think our sponsor was interested in is getting a growth-oriented transformation underway in MoxiWorks. A lot of times, businesses in challenging states are huge opportunities for those with an eye to do something better. And so they brought in a growth-oriented CEO and the scaled asset to a little bit bring startup DNA and how do we think again like a young company that has to disrupt. But with a benefit of 1,000 real estate brokerages and 400,000 agents that are our customers. And so I thought it was a thrilling next chapter of my career as well.
So trial by fire into the real estate industry for sure. During a very challenging time. So I want to talk high level. Over the past year, what have you seen as some real overarching technology trends for agents and brokers?
Yeah, and I'll stay away from AI for a bit because obviously the reverberations of the AI conversation are getting deafening. I think mostly for the first time in the last 70 years of using that term, it's more real than ever before. But look, what I'd say is I'm probably different than a lot of technologists. The technology is not going to solve the problems in the real estate industry. I think a lot of what we're seeing in our successful customers today is getting back to basics and the blocking and tackling of what it took to be a successful real estate agent 10 years ago, just the hard work of filling the database and nurturing your contacts. But look, what MoxiWorks does is really just sales and marketing software for real estate agents. We've historically sold to the real estate brokerages. And I think the statistics and the data is pretty overwhelming that if you put in the hard work as an agent and pick up the phone when it's not calling and, all those things that are sometimes distasteful, and you apply technology in a really smart way, you have really got an edge over competition. And in a world where, maybe we sell more than 4 million homes this year, but nobody should bet on it. In a world where you want to expand your business and a fixed market size means you got to win something from someone else at a higher degree. And so for me, I think it's like all industries. You work hard and you apply technology smart. I think you're going to have a leg up on competition. And I guess the last thing I'd say, the statistics in this industry about adoption of brokerage or franchise or sponsor software is pretty low. 20 to 30% is pretty standard. 70% of your peers aren't using tech.
It's a huge opportunity then for you to be using it. And I've seen an evolution in real estate technology. From years ago when it was all about disrupting the agent-client relationship to now supporting it. What other, how else has real estate technology evolved in your opinion?
Yeah, look, I think that's a good point, and I wasn't here, but 10 years ago, you were right. We were in the disruptive phase. If you look at
Yeah.
software life cycles,
Mm-hmm.
that was really as we were leaning into the boom time of 21. That was the period of hyperbole and outsized hope and vision and marketing speak about technology. We're now in this area where it's all getting rationalized, and we're realizing tech is not magic. It's not auto magical. It's not going to make a not hardworking agent successful. What it's going to do is augment the hardworking agent, make them even more successful. What I see is a real focusing on kind of those key capabilities that will make agents successful. There's only 3 or 4 major big vendors in this space. And unfortunately, and I've said this before and I don't mind saying it, we've all become a little laggards in terms of innovation because we're all private equity backed. And normally that means a profit motivation and tons of startups in the space. I have never seen a space with so many startups in it. I think the bar to have a good idea in real estate is low. I think the bar to achieve scale and kind of breakout velocity to reach the scale of a MoxiWorks is very hard. So I think what you're seeing and what you're definitely going to see from MoxiWorks is a re-envisioning about what software should look like for an agent to support an agent in 25. I think the market is very different today than it was in 21 and for a lot of the years from '09 leading up to 21. I think you're seeing it focusing on just those key capabilities that matter. And guess what? AI is real. AI is real in the real estate industry as it is in every other industry. It's not going to replace agents. It's not going to do the job of agents. But it sure can't take care of a lot of the administrative and the back office type things for agents. Let them do what they do best, which is give advice, guidance, and counsel.
And that kind of leads into my next question, which is, what are some of the innovations that you think are going to have the greatest impact on real estate agents and brokers in the coming couple of years?
Yeah, I think a lot of them flow into AI. Not that AI
Mm-hmm.
is going to do something differently, but
Mm-hmm.
AI is lowering the bar for software development, and it's also lowering the bar for creative industries. And what is real estate? Real estate is a bit of a creative industry if you think about listings and ads, and there's a bunch of content that has to be created in this space. A lot of our technology creates content, and so even though this idea, they call them AI agents, is no different than
Mm-hmm.
robotic process automation of 20 years ago, it's this idea that you use technology to automate low value tasks for humans to be doing, like setting up emails, like pulling listing content and creating presentations or ads before a human has to start to type. Let the human edit what has been created. And let AI create that content. And so I think the biggest potential boom in this industry is to let agents focus more on what really distinguishes an agent. Nobody uses an agent because they've got better email marketing software. They use them because they trust that agent more. And so the more the agent can be in the field, all the better. And so I know we're spending an enormous amount of energy in AI and automation in our tools. And then I'd also say the rise of the power of agent teams in this
Mm-hmm.
industry is not going away. They're going to continue to wield more power in these brokerages and franchisers. Some of our more successful brokerage customers, a quarter of the agents are in teams, driving 40% of the transaction value. And so technology that better enables teams, while not brand new, I think it's really got to evolve as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do question like the adoption. What other than just the pure idea of learning something new, what are some of the other roadblocks that you're seeing out there? And what is MoxiWorks doing to kind of ease people into adopting a technology?
It's a good question. And I think there are controllable and uncontrollables. Just why the reason I don't worry about a market rebound is because it's uncontrollable, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not organizing a growth transformation that requires a rebound. A lot of the adoption issues, I think, are because of the nature of the relationship between an agent and a franchisor or brokerage, and that they're contractors and they can pick up their contact database and go somewhere else almost overnight. I think there might be a little distrust of the agents themselves to want to use the broker sponsored technology all in, especially because most vendors make it a little difficult to move your data from one brokerage to another. And so what is MoxiWorks doing? We're trying to make that transition easier. Look, brokerages are still our customers, but agents are our end users as well. And so we want to, in a lot of the tech that we're writing today, we're making portability of your information as an agent easier, while not breaching the confidentiality of your data, right? The confidentiality of your data. And so we're making it easier to move. But from an adoption perspective, we're also creating, and this is not technology related, we're creating an agent experience department where, as we've seen in this industry, as brokerage margins have gotten tighter and they've looked more for ancillary sources of revenue, training and education of the agents has suffered a little bit, especially around technology adoption. And so I think the vendors are going to have to step in and start to provide some of that encouragement, the education, the learning around why technology matters. And that has nothing to do with the vendor you use. It has to do with just basic coaching. And so we're building a department to start to lean into that more. It may not sound inspirational, but if we can get adoption from 25% to 35%, that's a 40% increase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just what I see out there too is it's overwhelming. Real estate is a relationship business. So their first, agents first and foremost want to develop relationships, and they don't always want to take the time to build the system to make it easier for them to build those relationships, because they're in it, especially when it's a really busy market like we've had, like the COVID market. Now they do have some downtime, unfortunately, to spend on really building up that database and building up those AI generated systems to get things going. So it's a huge opportunity. And like you said, MoxiWorks is looking to grow during this time as well. And really, smart agents, smart brokers, smart companies, this is the time to take advantage of that growth opportunity. And so what are some of those strategies that you're seeing agents take, or strategies you think they need to embrace in kind of this tech-driven world, even though it's a relationship-based business?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love the way you talked about down market as a time to retool. It's a time to invest. Look, I spent a lot of my formative years in Houston. Even though I don't know much about oil and gas, I know when oil is $50 a barrel, that's when all the gas companies are investing in tech and new ERP systems. Mm-hmm. And so I think the same is true here. It's a perfect opportunity. Look, I've never been an agent, so I want to be careful not to act like I know what it takes to be an agent. But I've practically been in sales my entire career, and what I know is a lot of it is getting back to the basics. What we did here at MoxiWorks, even though we've got almost 14-year legacy, when we were starting to re-envision what does tech look like for 25, we totally wiped the whiteboard clean and said, forget about everything we've done and all of our different products. What does the market need today? I think a little bit of that cleaning the slate when there's some downtime to say, if I wanted to dominate the market in 25 and I were being born here, what would I do differently than 10 or 8 or 12 years ago? And I think what most people will find is much less to do about technology, and it's more to do with the actual process of building that database and nurturing that database. And then you figure out the smart ways to apply technology as well. I will tell you, I feel like the vendors have let end users down a little bit here. There is so much known about what it takes to be a successful agent. Number of contacts in equals this GCI out if you do these four things. Our software, like a lot of our competitors, requires people to go click buttons to make the software do what we know it takes. And so when I talk about the next version of MoxiWorks, I bundle AI with automation because it shouldn't matter, are we really using AI or just algorithms? But the reality is the software ought to do more of the heavy lifting. You get a new ping on a listing, let the software create the CMA and the presentation and have it waiting there for you with generative AI content for you to do editing and click send, as opposed to having to start the creation process from scratch.
Yeah. Have you, are there any kind of transitions or brokerages that implemented MoxiWorks that you were just blown away at how they implemented the program, and what did they do to really find that adoption, kind of solve for that adoption?
Yeah. Yeah, we do. And you probably know we have some of the biggest customers on earth. The brokerages and franchisors as our customers, with a bunch of brands inside you. So you see totally different outcomes in terms of adoption. We've got some brands that are at 60 or 70% adoption, and I've seen them as low as 9%. And what's the difference? Part of it is how much the brokerage themselves get in the boat of getting adoption, as opposed to putting on the intranet, here's your technology stack, go use it and download it. The brands that do more of the heavy lifting of getting branding or even email campaigns set up at the brokerage and make them available at the agents, those are the more successful ones as well. And so it makes me a little bit want to scream when I look at 9% adoption, because we know the 5 things it takes. But now we're in a world where staffing is less than it was before, and it's tough choices that even these brokerages are having to make. But I think there's a time-tested formula that we have seen successful, and it's get in the boat.
You said there are 5 things. Well,
yeah, and I don't have a list of 5 things.
Oh, okay.
I bet we could, right? I bet there are 5 things that we could say, go do these. And this is part of what our agent experience team is trying to, discover, and then figure out how do we come in and just do some of these for the brokerages, whether it's a for charge service or not.
So for brokers, what questions should they be asking you in implementing your product? And then what questions should they be, asking themselves about whether they're ready to do it, I guess?
Yeah, it might differ a little whether they're a broker that already has technology or one that doesn't. Look, all the major brands do, but we're selling a lot of middle market brokerages today where we're closer to the new technology. Look, I guess one of the initial questions is, what problem are you trying to solve? Because you can't solve them all, and marketing is not going to solve a limitation of homes being sold in a year. So what exact problem you're trying to solve, and does the vendor you're talking to actually match them? MoxiWorks and some of our bigger peers are full suite. We do everything from the CRM all the way to the nurturing once a deal has been closed. That might not be the problem everyone is trying to solve. And so while we're a full suite, normally what we're selling in the middle market is 1 or 2 solutions that solve that exact problem. The barriers to success go down if you focus on just that piece of software that does what you need. And so while it goes against maybe the revenue model, it increases chance of success in the brokerage.
Yeah. And what, I know a lot of brokers really, they struggle with deciding on a product to use, or a service to use, because they've been sold to for so many years on, technology. And it's it's because it went from like, a competitive advantage to now, table stakes. I mean, you just have to have it for your company. What advice do you have for brokers who are trying to determine, like, and maybe it is partially solve for the, what problem you're trying to solve, but what is some other advice that you have for them deciding, is this something I want, or is this, whether it's your program or another program, or is this just another shiny object that's getting my attention and sounds really great?
Yeah. Well, look, I think you said part of it, which is it's becoming table stakes. It is
Mm-hmm.
certainly table stakes for the most successful agents around. You will always have those unique agents that don't have to use tech because they've been in the business for so long and they've got such relationships. But I promise someone in their office is using tech to support them, right? So it always comes back to, so I absolutely agree with you. It is table stakes. So the question of, should I be applying tech? It doesn't seem really relevant, but there are a lot of options. There's a lot of old established vendor options, and there are a billion startup options. I would really boil it down to the basics of what problem I'm trying to solve today. Start just with that problem. Don't try and solve everything. And then talk with others in the space, right? The hardest choice I think right now for folks isn't do I or don't I? It's which of the 30 options do I do? And this is going to sound self-serving, but the biggest vendors in the space are that way for a reason, because they've got kind of time-tested tech. And so I would obviously weight towards that, but I would talk with customers of the vendors. We have a lot of customers coming back to us that got enamored of the startups in the space that just can't implement the way everybody hoped.
Yeah.
So be careful. This is important. And I guess last thing I'd say, and you know this probably all too well, and this was different than my last industry. Our customers' reputations are so wrapped around the software that they deliver because it's part of the value prop of associating with that brokerage. You have to be really careful about who you pick, because a failed tech implementation doesn't just look bad for the vendor, it looks bad for the brokerage who chose the software. So you got to be really careful. I think it comes back to start small, prove out a case study, prove it out in one or two offices. Don't roll it out everywhere. Fine tune it and then roll it out. And only once you're successful, figure out the next problem to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. And as consumers kind of evolve, how can agents use technology to meet their needs?
Yeah, it's a great question. And most of the vendors in the space today don't do a good job of connecting to the actual end user, which is the consumer themselves. After AI, I think that's probably the next biggest evolution here, because I think it's the ultimate dream that once a transaction is closed, the brokerage and the vendor can get a tighter relationship with the consumer, where when they're ready to come back around for another transaction, it's just a natural, whether that's housing all of the data about the home that they bought or the dates things have to be done, or home information. I think that's ultimately the holy grail here. And I know it's certainly something we aspire to do. As well as I see a trend in the space more in Canada now than the US, where some of the real estate brokerages, if you think about the life cycle of what MoxiWorks, most brokerages do, they get involved when someone wants to buy or sell a home, and it ends when there's a transaction. You got the customer journey after that, but before this, you've got pre-buyers that are renting today. I see brokerages in Canada starting to extend further left and get involved in property management and try and catch a home buyer much earlier in the process. And so I love the idea of that theme as well.
Yeah, that's and property management offers that kind of steady income at a time that the market is not so steady as well. So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
huge
that's right.
opportunity. Yeah, huge
Right.
opportunity right now. I mean, there's a lot of focus on data analytics and AI. So I guess I want to know from you, what do you think are what are you implementing through MoxiWorks that you're using AI? I think it's very confusing to people what AI actually is.
Yeah,
And then they've heard it's going to take over, or they're going to be robots, and it's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
dangerous. What do you think are the most essential functions And what are you implementing through MoxiWorks?
Yeah, I think it's two big categories. And one is going to sound confusing and threatening, and it shouldn't, but it's agentic AI, which shouldn't be confused with an AI real estate agent. Agentic AI is you roll out very small chunks of AI that will do things in the background. And so think of it as a background agent. This is really big when you're thinking about all of the things it takes to be successful as a real estate agent. Software can prepare a lot of this stuff for you. So agentic AI, rolling out little automations. But the second is generative AI. And I want to come back to the data-rich nature of real estate because I think that's a long-term goal. But generative AI, it is not as hard to write pure content that is good for SEO. It's not as hard to do that today as it was yesterday. I use ChatGPT in my daily life. And it needs to become part of the real estate software experience because so much of the heavy lifting of writing can be done with AI. Now you want to edit it, you want to look at it, you want to customize, but content is the nature of the game. When you're doing email nurturing and trying to keep the database warm, it's all about content. AI can help surface a lot of this much easier. So it's those two big areas.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last question is just what's next for MoxiWorks? Any big rollouts? You're obviously looking to grow. So kind of what's your plan moving forward?
Well, look, we've been making a big investment in not only technology, but also in the whole go-to-market motion. We've got a big launch of the next version of our software in the summer of this year. I mean, it is a big launch. We've spent a year, almost since the day I got here, we've been writing the next version of our software. And so that'll be coming out in the summer. We're working with a bunch of our customers today in the beta program of that. So absolutely, that's huge. But I mentioned the go-to-market as well. And I think I'm just stating facts here instead of criticizing the industry, as brokerage margins have gotten smaller, whether it's through agents getting a bigger portion of the commission dollar or just less at bats in home sales, the ability to pay for software, the willingness to pay for software has also gotten a bit smaller as well. And so we have visualized a world where we deliver base capabilities to agents through brokerages with a paywall where agents that actually want to use the advanced capabilities and can afford to do it can do that as well. And so that's a bit of a go-to-market change, and we partnered with a bunch of our big customers to do that. Not everybody wants to do that. It's distasteful for some. But for some who can't afford to roll out the technology the agents need, it's another way to get them access to the tech. And we also have to build it into the software with a paywall.
Yeah, that's smart. Well, Eric, thank you so much for coming on the RealTrending podcast today and sharing all of your knowledge. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Tracey. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks.